Hi, you guys. We're starting part 3 of mechanics of breathing. So we need to think about the changes in size of your thoracic cage in order to think of how air is deciding to come in when you breathe in and exhale out. So it has to do with the change in the size of the box. Remember, we were talking about that earlier. So during inspiration, you need a larger thorax, and that larger thorax is going to create a lower pressure, a lower intrapulmonary pressure. It's like making that box, stretching a box. The pressure drops inside the box, and if the pressure drops inside the box, air is going to flow in. So this is what you're doing with varying the size of your thoracic cavity. If you're going to inspire, then you're going to increase the size of that cavity. During exhalation, it's the opposite. You're going to contract, make that box smaller, and create a higher intrapulmonary pressure, and the outcome of that is that air is going to shoot out, just like a balloon that we talked about before. If you make a hole in an inflated balloon, which direction is air going to go in? It's going to go out and not in, correct? Because there's a greater pressure. So everything we think about in breathing has to do with pressure. Where is the greater pressure and which is the lesser pressure? Because air is going to go from the greater to the lesser pressure always. So in order to achieve that, there's going to be a change in the lung volume, correct? And look at this picture of expiration and then compare it to inspiration. So you've let air out, and this is all the region of air. And now you're inhaling, air is coming in, and it is utilizing a much greater area of this cavity, correct? Let me get my pen here. Okay, so let's look at these diagrams. At rest, your diaphragm is relaxed. So look at this dome that you see here in the diaphragm, correct? And in order to make the space larger, we can flatten that out. So by flattening this out, it's going to increase the size of this box, right? I'm thinking of this box here. So that's exactly what happens in B. You have brought the diaphragm down. So what used to be up here now is an increase. And then your ribs are here. And if we could elevate the ribs a little bit, what used to be a size of a box this size is now going to increase to there. So we have an increase here, the arrows are showing that, laterally and here inferiorly, and making this box bigger. So by increasing the size of that box, the pressure drops and air then is going to enter the lung. Now, in C, if you have the diaphragm relaxing and these ribs coming back down again, then the box has become smaller, the pressure has increased, and air will leave the lung. And that's kind of the mechanism. When you first start thinking about this, you imagine that you're forcing air into your lung by sort of sucking it in. You're not really. What's happening is you just change the shape of that box, and the outcome of that is that air will go in or air will go out. When you think of the ribs moving, sometimes it's hard to imagine because a rib is fully attached at its base. So this analogy, this drawing here of a water pump, has the handle still attached, but you can move it up and down. And that's exactly what a rib does. So it's perfectly attached, but you still have the capacity to increase the size of that box by moving the rib slightly. The other analogy is the bucket, attached on one end, but you can still move this handle. So there's a certain amount of movement that's happening there. And it's going to happen because of the muscles attached onto those ribs. And those are the intercostal muscles. The external intercostals are going to raise the ribs. They're going to come up this way. And you're going to inhale because you've enlarged the box. And air is going to come in. And then if you were to just release that, right, if I do away with this is going to drop right back down again. And this elastic tissue in that lung is going to allow it to go right back down. I can also force it, however. So the internal intercostals can lower the ribs when you force your exhale, and I can blow out. I can do that on purpose. Mostly when you're breathing normally, just watching this video right now, you're not forcing that. It's just exhaling because you have released the external intercostals. Let's think of now the pleural sac that holds the lungs against the thoracic wall. So we want our lungs to be held against the thoracic wall. We don't want them to collapse like a deflated balloon. That would not be helpful. So look at this picture here. Imagine a fluid-filled balloon and an air-filled balloon. So for the air-filled balloon, you're talking about the lung. For the fluid-filled balloon here, we're going to squish it down and make it surround that space of the lung. And that is the pleural membrane, or pleural, pleural membranes. And one of these is going to be very closely attached, right, onto the surface of the lung, and the other one's going to be exterior to that. And inside there's going to be fluid. So the visceral pleura is this one on the surface of the lung, and the parietal pleura is this outer one here, and that's more attached onto the wall of the thorax. The cavity is what's in between, and inside what it has is fluid, just like you had in this water balloon here. You have fluid within these two pleural membranes. This is a drawing that's a little more realistic. So you would have in purple, you have your lung, intrapulmonary pressure with its own intrapulmonary pressure. And then you would have in light blue here, the pleural cavity. Super important, with its visceral pleura on this side and parietal pleura on the other side, and the fluid in between. Now, what's really important here is that intrapleural pressure, this pressure in here inside, look at this, is about -4 millimeters of mercury, which means that the pressure in here is slightly lower than the pressure of the actual lung. So there's the little vacuum that's drawing this lung out towards the rib area and holding it there and not letting it collapse. This double membrane is needed to adhere to the wall, so this is written out for you. The intrapleural pressure is between the parietal and the visceral membranes, and it's always lower than that of the lung itself, anywhere from 3 to 4 millimeters of mercury lower. As a review, intrapulmonary pressure is that pressure within the lung itself. Very, very important, because this is what's going to keep your lung expanded. You need that negative pressure on the outside of the lung. What happens if you don't have it? Well, then you would have a pneumothorax. So here, this one's normal. Picture here is normal, where the lung seemingly is coming all the way here along the ribs. It's close to where the ribs are. And here, something's happened. Let's make a knife coming in here with its handle. So a knife, it has punctured that intrapleural pressure. It's taken away that pressure, and you no longer have that -4 millimeters of mercury. What happens then is that this lung is just sort of collapsed here, and it's no longer coming all the way to the border of the chest cavity. So it opens the pleural sac to the atmosphere. That intrapleural pressure becomes the same as the atmosphere. So it equilibrates with the atmosphere. There's a loss of that pressure gradient. Then think of the elastic recoil that the lung has. It has elastic fibers. It's been stretched. If you don't allow that negative pressure, it's just going to sort of retract on itself, and it causes a lung to collapse. So you have a case study that's going to be due, and it's called Cross-Country Collision, and you have various questions about this, so it'll get you thinking a lot more about pneumothorax. It's very interesting. Here's just one more diagram. There's the knife coming in, and air now, the pressure here and the pressure outside is the same. And this pressure then, if this is going to collapse, as there's no negative pressure drawing the lung towards the sides of the rib cage here, the whole cavity. I'm going to stop there, and we'll continue on the next slide, next video, on matching ventilation and perfusion, which means bringing in enough air for the blood to be able to pick it up and bringing in enough blood for the air that's provided. So let's stop there. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening.